Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, and this is this week's issue of the Libertarian Angle, the show, as many of you know, that brings you the Libertarian angle on the burning issues of the day, sponsored by the Future of Freedom Foundation. We're at fff.org. I'm joined, as I am every week, by the former Vice President of Academic Affairs in the early days of FFF, later became the president of the Foundation for Economic Education. Before that, the Ludwig von Mises Professor of Economics at Hillsdale College, and today the BB&T Distinguished Professor of Free Enterprise Leadership and Ethics at the Citadel. Richard, how's that for an introduction?
That was a great introduction. Matter of fact, I'm going to have you just follow me around wherever I go. This is great.
Anytime. Just send your donation to FFF for that nice introduction. Okay, Richard, we're going to talk today, I think, about a subject that we've never addressed, at least you and I, on Libertarian Angle, and that's insider trading. And the reason that it comes up again, well, it's often coming up, but there was a congressman named Collins, I forget where he's from, New York or something, that suddenly got charged with insider trading. And what he apparently did, or supposedly did, was that he received some information that some kind of drug test had failed or something like this, and he and his family owned a large amount of stock in the drug company, and so he goes out and immediately sells his stock, and then of course it plummets in value when the information gets out to the public. So he saved himself, and his family saved himself, a lot of money by selling early. And now he's being charged with the federal crime of insider trading. And so that raises the issue. I mean, and he's not the only guy. I mean, the feds are always charging people with insider trading. You'll recall the Martha Stewart case. They never technically charged her criminally with insider trading. They ended up charging her with lying to a federal official. They convicted her. But the supposed lie took place surrounding this idea of insider trading. Well, we libertarians have always taken a different position from conservatives and liberals. This is one of the things that distinguish us, that we fervently oppose these laws that criminalize insider trading. And for various reasons. We talk about, we're going to be talking in this show, I presume, about economic efficiency, the freedom of speech, the right to capitalize or seize on opportunities or information that you happen to acquire first. And so this whole idea of insider trading is something that you and I feel that shouldn't even be against the law. What is your reasoning on the subject?
Yeah, let me say this has been a controversial issue for quite a while. It's the Securities and Exchange Commission that most frequently polices these concerns. The idea is that someone gets information before others, and by having a bit of information before others in the society, in the marketplace, they can know if a stock is likely in the near future to rise or to go down, and therefore to pull out before the price goes down, or to invest in and ride the price going up. And that this is viewed as unfair since others in the society do not have this knowledge. Now, a great critic of a lot of the insider trading laws was an economic-oriented lawyer named Henry Manning. He set up one of the first law and economics programs at a university, ending up revamping and actually running for a while the one at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. But he wrote a book called Insider Trading, and I believe it's Economic Behavior, that came out actually around 1966, if I remember. And his argument is that you have to make some distinctions, and that is actions undertaken on the basis of contractual obligations or not. He never challenged the idea that if an employee has been hired and has in his employment contract been told that he may not use information that comes his way to invest in the stock market or pull out of the stock market, for example, before the company has gone public with that information, he therefore should view himself as legally obligated to not act on that. He's made a promise in his employment terms. But if there are no such restrictions, Manny argued that it would assure greater economic efficiency, that is, getting information out in the fastest and expeditious way, if the people who first became aware of it started trading on it, because that immediate trade would have been informing others in the marketplace that things are affecting that stock or that company or that sector of the economy, so they too can make their informed and better judgment on how to respond to act in this way. Let me give you a concrete example. Maybe some of the viewers and listeners will remember a company headquartered in Texas called Enron. This is quite a number of years ago. And they got into a lot of trouble for financial shenanigans of various sort of upper echelons in this company. There is a free market economist in Texas named Robert Bradley. And Bob Bradley actually wrote a book about Enron. And part of it was how the degree of malfeasance and misuse of funds and lying and cheating had been able to go on in this company for so long and to such a catastrophic degree on both employees and investors when this finally went all public, that he argued that people began sensing that things were wrong in the company, in the lower echelons. Information, data, things that they would hear. But these employees, because of SEC rules, not necessarily because of a contract they had signed internally as an employee, couldn't act on this. Bob Bradley's argument was in this book, following Manny's lead, if you will, was that if the employees had been legally able to start trading on this, and they could have been right or wrong, right? They could have made money or lost money because this is sort of their sense of what's going on in the company, that this would have sent signals to the wider market that there were problems internally with the management and the finances of this large corporation, and that people then would have had signals to make them want to investigate themselves, demand more transparent information from the company, both as stockholders and other related investors, so that the malfeasance could not have extended for as long or as severely if people had been able to use what information they either had concretely or had a feel about, right? You never know what's going to happen, really. A lot of market decision making is based upon expectations about what you think might be happening in parts of the market, running the speculative likelihood of either a profit or a loss. But that if people had been able to share this information as expressed in market prices in the stock market, sooner than them actually materialize following SEC rules for the most part, a lot of the damage would have been minimized, if not mitigated. And that therefore prohibiting this type of use of information can be highly damaging. Now, in the case of a congressman, maybe Jacob, you know better than myself, I assume that there are certain rules that elected officials sign contractually as a member of Congress limiting or prohibiting their use of such insider information. If they sign such a document after taking the oath as a congressman, then they have legally broken the law. They entered into a contract as a government employee. A congressman is a government employee. But if there are no such rules, then this person has not acted illegitimately and just informed others in the marketplace sooner than they would have found out and be able to then act spreading this information more widely to everybody than would otherwise have been the case. But from an economic point of view, since knowledge is not known or shared by everyone completely and simultaneously, you want new information to be acted upon and disseminated and spread so others can make their own better informed decisions in as expeditious and a rapid and as market-based price way as possible. The only obligation is a contractual one. And as long as that has not been breached, then insider trading under SEC rules is one that should be basically set aside.
Yeah, one of the accusations that critics of insider trading level at these kind of actions is that they say, oh, there's fraud. People are defrauding the others. Well, fraud entails normally a misrepresentation of a material fact. And let's go back to your example of a private company, and let's just start there as the building block of our analysis here. If a private company says, okay, this is a stock ownership company, and anybody who comes to work here, pursuant to what you were talking about, they agree, pursuant to the contract here, that they will not seize on any information that they acquire in the course of this company. So if a drug test goes bad, they can't go out and start selling their stock. They can't take advantage of this information. All right, we're dealing with a straight contract. And so if a person goes out and does it, let's say that the company has a bad drug test, and so the guy goes out and sells the stock, he has breached the contract. And so so let's say he saves himself a bunch of money. Well, the company could sue him for that money and saying, hey, you had no right to do this, you've broken the contract. But there's no fraud involved here. It's just a simple breach of contract. The fact that he sells his stock to somebody out there who wants the stock at that price, there's no fraud involved here. Now, I guess somebody might argue, well, he has a duty to disclose to the seller he has this information. I guess that argument can be made. But, the person that's buying the stock is going to buy the stock at that price regardless. He's going to buy it from somebody who doesn't have access to this information. So it's difficult to see how he's been damaged when he himself wants that stock at that price. So your analogy of the government, of the congressman, is that essentially the same thing, that if Congress has these rules that prohibit their employees from seizing on this information, then that means they're not permitted to do that. But I don't see how in either case that should transcend into a criminal violation here. That we're dealing with civil wrongs rather than some type of criminal wrong, like a person's defrauded somebody or something or other. Now, let's take the other instance, though. Suppose a company says, hey, as a perk of working here, we will let you do whatever you want with the stock. So if you have access, if a drug test really comes out to be good and it hasn't been released to the public, we've got no problems with you going out in the marketplace and buying stock. Well, clearly there's no fraud here. There's no violation of a contract. When the person goes out and buys a stock, he's normally going through a broker. But even if it was a direct one-on-one transaction, the person who's selling the stock wants to sell the stock at that price. So he's going to sell the stock to somebody who doesn't have the inside information or does have the information. As far as he's concerned, he just wants to sell at that price. So it seems to me that in that case, nobody's being defrauded at all. It's just a simple economic transaction. And the company is saying, hey, look, this is a perk. Now, let's assume they don't hide it from the public, that there's their ethical rules. Everybody that is going to buy stock in that company knows that employees are free to do this. Well, there's certainly no fraud there that's taking place, because anybody that buys stock knows that when an employee of that company has access to this information first, he can go out and buy that stock. So he doesn't have to buy it. If he doesn't like that condition, he doesn't have to buy the stock. He can go elsewhere and go buy stock from a different company. So as long as the company's above board with it, I don't see what the problem is.
No, you're absolutely right. Let me sort of use an analogy on how legitimacy of using information. My mother used to be a professional singer at one time in her career, and she knew one of the people in the music world who in the early 1960s was promoting the singer Dionne Warwick. Maybe some of the viewers and listeners will remember her. And that she was just starting her career then as a singer, really. But the producer said, she has that special thing. She's not known now, but in a few years, she's going to be a big star. Now, let's suppose that Dionne Warwick was a corporation, right? She was an incorporated person with stock shares. And someone said, she has a lot of talent, when nobody really knows her yet. And he shared that information about someone who he's handling. And so let us suppose I decide to invest in Dionne Warwick corporate shares, like if she was a corporation, and trusting his judgment, I made a bundle of money. What was wrong with that? Because the point is, a lot of people in the music world think they're going to be great, and obviously their promoters think so, otherwise why would they be handling them? And they're not. Well, the same thing is with anything in the market. The fact is, every new product or improvement of a product or an innovation in a product or even just a marketing method of a product is all speculative and uncertain. And if people believe that this is useful information that they should act upon, either positive or negative, that in fact makes the market more efficient. Economists, and I don't mind to sound too nerdy here, economists professionally have this model of the world which they call the perfect competition model. And they assume that people don't make mistakes, or mistakes are minimized, because the presumption is that everyone in the market has, if not perfect knowledge, pretty much sufficient knowledge never to make a mistake. So now, if this is your assumption that market efficiency is a market in which everyone pretty much has all relevant knowledge they should have to make an informed decision, then anyone who uses knowledge that everyone else doesn't have seems to be a spoiler taking advantage of something. But the point is, in the real world, we all start out with limited and imperfect knowledge, the way Austrian economists like Friedrich Hayek have pointed out. The very nature of a division of labor is that it involves division of knowledge. There are a lot of things that other people know that I have no knowledge about. And I like to think that I have perhaps a bit more knowledge about economics, theory, and policy than many others in the society. So we all start out with this decentralized, diffused, and imperfect knowledge, some of which can be useful to us. The quicker and more effectively the knowledge that may be relevant to us can be shared with us, provided to us, made available to us, the better. And if someone has either solid information or an informed sense that this is useful information and they start acting upon it, and if it affects something such as the market price, then in fact you are helping to disperse knowledge more widely, more completely than otherwise would have been the case if everybody has to go around like that because they know something that a lot of other people don't know yet. And again, as long as it's not a breach of contract, which I was talking about and you hammered away and emphasized, then this should not be viewed as illegal or fraudulent in any way. It's in fact helping other people to know things that they may know through stock purchases, for instance, that affect the price of that share.
Yeah, and it seems to me that in most of these transactions, there's a disparity of knowledge between all of the actors in the marketplace. I mean, let's say a person is going to start investing in the stock market, and he's, let's say, retired. So he spends every day researching this company. I mean, hours and hours. He's looking over the financial statements. He's looking at the quotes from people. He's just doing extensive research. Compared to the guy that's working 8 hours a day, he doesn't have time to do that. He's just going to buy stock because he wants to invest in the stock market. Well, the guy that's doing all the research, he clearly has more information to make a reasoned judgment here. He can look at the income statement. He can draw conclusions from this. Is this unfair that he's got more information and more knowledge about that stock than the amateur, the guy that's working 8 hours a day that doesn't have it? No. I mean, this is, now, to me, having a piece of special information is just one of those fortuitous things in life. I mean, if you let's say you're sitting in a restaurant and you hear two key executives sitting at the next table saying, "Boy, I can't believe that drug test failed this morning." You're a lucky guy. It's like walking down the beach and finding a diamond ring or something. That right. You happen to acquire this information. You acquired it before everybody else did. Why shouldn't you be free to go out and take advantage of that information? And another analogy of this is like in sports betting. I mean, people subscribe to these sports services because they're betting, and so the sports services are giving them all the inside information as to what's going on, their analysis and so forth. Well, if all of a sudden they get wind that a player's been injured, in a motorcycle accident off the field or something, they're going to immediately tell their subscribers about this, and the subscribers are going to go out and lay bets based on that information. The quarterback's getting knocked out of that case. What's wrong with that? I mean, that to me is just part of the market process, that some people acquire information sooner than others. And as you point out, that what we're really looking for in a market is the reality of what that stock is worth. So let's say the stock's selling for $100 a share, and all of a sudden it turns out this drug test has failed. Well, that's not the real state of affairs here now. That stock price is now in reality worth $75 a share because of that failed drug price. All the guy who is doing, or the woman that's doing, is selling his stock based on this inside information, is he's bringing information to the marketplace that is placing that stock in its real valuation. Because the valuation is now no longer real once that drug test has failed. And that's really what the stock market is doing in terms of efficiency. It's trying to arrive at the price that reflects the reality of the situation. And so, as you've pointed out, all that the person is doing with the insider information is bringing reality sooner to the marketplace. He starts to dump his stock on the market. That's telling people, hey, something's going on here, and maybe I need to be selling too.
Yeah, you see, the thing is that if we think of this concept broadly enough, each and every one of us acts on insider information. And that is our skills and abilities in the system of division of labor. The person who's a barber, doesn't he charge for his insider information, which is having gone to a barber college and know how to cut your hair without making you look really bad, or a beautician with women's hair? What about a lawyer? He deals in insider information that others don't possess. A person could acquire it, but they'd have to go to law school, or at least do a lot of amateur research on their own. You go to a lawyer who has the insider information from education, experience before the bar, and that he charges you for this, right? We all use insider information, and we then decide the value of people's different insider information by the fact that some lawyers make a lot more money than others, even when it's the same area of law. I'm a professor. Professors receive different ranges of salaries based upon the judgment of what special information they have from their knowledge, experience, scholarship, etc. So broadly defined, we all are using in other words, we don't give away our knowledge for free in the form of the goods and services we could provide. We take advantage of what we know that others don't, as our niche in the division of labor. But what if you couldn't gain a benefit from taking advantage of the knowledge you know, such as your skill and professional ability in the division of labor? Would you have had an incentive to go to a professional training school like a barber college, or get a college or university degree, or a law degree, for instance? Chances are not. It's the ability for you to capitalize it. Besides the fact you might just find the work interesting and you'd like it as a career, right? You'd rather do something you like than not. You do it to capitalize on its market value and to have knowledge that other people will pay you for. Well, this idea of being in a situation either serendipitously, as you were saying, overhearing a conversation in a restaurant, or being in a business where there's no contractual restrictions on such conduct, to take advantage of what you know, to share that information with others, in one form the benefit from you, to either saving money on a stock that may go down, or maybe gain money on a stock that is likely to rise. All of this is socially beneficial for the youth and profitability of knowledge in the society.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder whether some of this antipathy toward insider trading is driven by envy and covetousness, that it's not fair that he's making money. I mean, of course, that's the driving idea behind the whole welfare state, is equalize wealth, equalize everybody. The whole idea of socialism is, I hate the fact that some people have more. I think everyone should be equal. Everybody should have the same. But here's another fallacy of these insider trading laws, Richard. Let's assume that I'm working for a company, and the stock is selling for $100, and I decide that I'm going to sell. And suddenly I acquire inside information at a staff meeting that the drug test has been a huge success, and the stock is going to soar through the roof. Mm-hmm. And I sit there and quietly decide, you know what? I'm not going to sell after all. And sure enough, when the information goes public, the stock is doubled or tripled in value, and I'm sitting there not having sold my stock. They can't prosecute me for that. I mean, I even if I go around telling people, I don't think that's against the law, the insider trading law, that your failure to do something based on insider information, they don't criminalize. Why not?
Right.
I mean, why wouldn't they criminalize both? Seems to me if you can benefit from insider trading both by selling or just sitting there and benefiting from the information.
No, you're absolutely right. Because you see that then you're in the situation that whether you sell or not sell, in other words, just hold on to something which you think may improve in value, itself could be taken as a charge. Well, you might have sold if you didn't believe it would rise, but you already held the stock in your portfolio. You're just making a decision not to sell it. So you're guilty of not doing something. It's not like the activity, oh, I went out and bought the stock or I actively sold. You're just holding your portfolio. Your choice not to sell it is a demonstration that you were using information that others didn't. I mean, it becomes both an ethical and a legal nightmare. The fact is that knowledge is valuable. And the most effective way for a lot of knowledge to be dispersed is through the price mechanism. The market is diffused and large. We hardly know a fraction of all the people whose actions with which we are interdependent in all the extensive corners of everything being done in the manufacturing and the supplying and the marketing of goods and services that are relevant to us as producers and certainly as consumers. And since we rely upon price information so pervasively to economize on what we need to know to make those better or more informed decisions, we want prices to be telling the truth as effectively and as rapidly as possible. And if someone's actions can manifest itself in a price change so that we then can make a more informed decision, we want people to be able to act upon it in those ways.
All right. Well, you mentioned Henry Manne. That's Manne, and anybody can Google Henry Manne Insider Trading and find his book, as well as I'm sure several articles that Manne wrote over the time. He was a law professor at George Mason University Law School. We've published over the 28 years of the Future of Freedom Foundation's existence many, many articles on insider trading. Come to our website at fff.org. Type into the search engine insider trading. Also, I would imagine if you Google insider trading libertarian, you'll get a lot of other perspectives from the other libertarian think tanks and educational foundations. Are there any other resources, Richard, that you can think of, including books or articles that especially stand out?
No, I think that I think Henry Manne's works of any sort, a lot of other free market think tanks, including, as you were just saying, FFF, have over the years had articles analyzing either in the abstract the case for and against insider trading, or in the concrete of some case that has come up in the news media. But really the guru of this was Henry Manne, and his 1966 book on insider trading and economic behavior is still a classic that is worth considering. The core of all the arguments are right in his book, though a lot of people have added to it, as you were saying.
Yeah, in fact, one of our recent guests on Libertarian Angle, Don Boudreau, has also written a lot of great stuff. He teaches economics at George Mason, also former president of the Foundation for Economic Education. So you can Google Boudreau or go to his website at Cafe Hayek. And so there's a lot of resources out there that explain the libertarian perspective and why these criminal sanctions against insider trading are really ludicrous and destructive. So, Richard, on that note, enjoyed the conversation as always, and look forward to talking to you next week.
Absolutely. And once more, as I always try to remember to do, I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for sharing a little bit of their time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your great support of our work. And come visit us at fff.org, where we've got lots of articles on insider trading as well as all the other libertarian issues. We also have a new video podcast series featuring different writers that are talking about aspects on liberty. Richard's is entitled Economic Straight Talk, and I'm doing a series on the JFK assassination, and as you'll see, we have other people that are going to be presenting different perspectives and just short videos and short podcasts. So come and see us at fff.org. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Till next time.